Welcome back, everybody. This is Spiritually Biased, and today I want to pick up where I left off a few years ago. And the topic of this video is the continuation of Christianity never came from Kemet. So this is the second video. Alright, so in this video, we're going to talk about, we're going to compare the gods of Egypt with the God of the Bible, as well as King Akhenaten. So one of the biggest claims that people from Kemet, or who follow this practice or this religion or whatever, one of their biggest arguments is that they believe that Christianity has stolen many different aspects of their culture and implemented it into the religion Christianity. Being a Christian is not a religion, however, but we're going to explore this in this topic today. So first and foremost, I want to talk about King Akhenaten. And Akhenaten is a very important figure. He's a very prominent figure in Kemet. He's a very prominent figure in the Egyptian culture, period. Now, people that practice Kemet, they would accredit King Akhenaten with bringing in monotheism into the world or into the universe. And they would make the argument that the Bible completely ripped the idea of monotheism off from King Akhenaten. So let's first address this. All right, so King Akhenaten, he died in 1335 BC. Let's say if that wasn't the case, it may only be a few years off. All right, but let's get into this. King Akhenaten. All right, was Akhenaten a monotheist? And this is from Britannica. Akhenaten's exclusive worship of the sun god Aten led early Egyptologists to claim that he created the world's first monotheistic religion. However, modern scholarship notes that Akhenaten's cult drew from aspects of other gods, particularly Re, Harakde, Shu, and Ma'at, in its imagining and worship of Aten. All right, so let's go and see what Aten was. Aten, also spelled Aten, in ancient Egyptian religion, a sun god depicted as the solar disk emitting rays terminating in human hands, whose worship briefly was the state religion. The pharaoh Akhenaten returned to supremacy of the sun god with the startling innovation that the Aten was to be the only god. To remove himself from the preeminent cult of Amun-Re at Thebes, Akhenaten built the city Akhetaton as a center for the Aten's worship. All right, so Aten was depicted as a sun disk, or as a solar disk, so to speak. So why is this important? Let's go to Exodus 20. I'm going to start at verse 3. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So a few things that we can glean from it, even according to the secular sources, Britannica, he was not the first one to establish monotheism, meaning just the worship of one God. I'm not going to throw the word religion in there. I don't look at myself as religious. I don't believe that being a Christian is, following Jesus as being a religion. But according to these sources, Akhenaten was not the first one to establish monotheism. All right. And on top of that, Akhenaten worshipped the sun god. He worshipped something that was created instead of worshiping the creator, as the people in the Bible or the men in the Bible had worshipped. So I want to talk about Noah a little bit. And this is just one little source. It says that Noah was born around 2448 BC. If you notice, that is a lot earlier than Akhenaten's death. Now, say if you don't want to believe that, one thing is for certain. According to the story of Noah's Ark and the flood, it's more than apparent, it's more than clear that according to the worldwide flood, Noah and his family were the only to survive. And from that standpoint, they repopulated the earth. All right. So everything in this Egyptian civilization came after the fact. So the only thing that I would have to prove in this video is that it actually happened. All right. So I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 8, verse 4. And the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat. So Ararat is in Turkey. And I want to use Ron Wyatt and his findings of Noah's Ark as a place finder. Hopefully I use that term correctly, but a place marker or a landmark, because everything came after that. The Egyptian civilizations and whatnot came after the flood. So Ron Wyatt discovered Noah's Ark some years ago, and the ark that he found was in the same place that Genesis said it was. All right, so with that being said, I wanted to tackle Akhenaten first, and show that there were other people, other men in the Bible that worshiped the one and true God of the Bible, of the universe, before Akhenaten not only established monotheism in Egypt, but there were men around a long time before him that worshiped one God. So the claim that people that practice Kemet make as far as Akhenaten being the first one to establish monotheism is false. So for Exhibit B, I just want to hone in on the story of Exodus and one of the major themes of it. So for those that are watching and don't know what the story of Exodus was about, Exodus centered on the bondage that the Israelites were into by the Egyptians. So not only did it focus in on the bondage of the Israelites at the hand of the Egyptians, but it also honed in on the Exodus, or the freeing of the Israelites from the hand of Egypt in bondage. All right, so one of the main things that took place was that there was a struggle or a war going on between the God of the Bible, which God told Moses his name was I Am in this book, and the Egyptian gods and magicians. All right, so one of the things that God told Moses that he wanted to do was not only liberate Israel, but to show the Egyptians that he was the real God. And the reason for that is because Egyptians, or Egypt, were more polytheistic. They had gods for everything. I don't think I'll be able to make enough videos about that, to be honest, but they had a God for everything. Egypt was very polytheistic, and God wants to show Egypt that he was the real God. So I'm going to read from Exodus chapter 7. I'm going to start from verse 4. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt, and bring forth my armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I stretch forth my hand upon Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them. So this is one of the things that God wanted to do. All right, show Egypt that he was the real God. So in this particular instance, I'll reiterate the point that when it comes to Christians and the God of the Bible and whatnot, Christianity has stolen nothing from Kemet at all. And I will go on to make that point. All right, so let's go to this article here. All right, I'm not going to read all of it, of course, but I just want to go ahead and get the meat and potatoes out of it. So pharaohs were considered literal sons of Ra, or the divine incarnation of Horus. They were thought to embody all the gods of Egypt and to be their representative to the Egyptian people. All right. So this is Exodus chapter 12, verse 12. Against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgment. All right. So the judgments God will carry out will be on a certain level against the Egyptian gods. In doing this, he would teach a lesson to both the Egyptians and the Israelites, who by now had been in Egypt for a number of generations and had drifted far from the religion of their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They had become thoroughly immersed in a corrupt Egyptian culture and religion. Okay, let's skip down. All right. First plague, water turns into blood. Exodus chapter 7, verses 19 and 20. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, say to Aaron, Take your rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over their streams, over their rivers, over their ponds, and over all their pools of water, that they may become blood. And there shall be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in buckets of wood and pitchers of stone. All right. So once again, I'm not going to read all of this stuff because I want to get to the meat and potatoes. All right. So how was this a judgment against the Egyptian gods? Because the Nile was so important to the Egyptians, they worshipped several gods who were responsible for watching over it. The great god Khnum, usually representing a human male with a ram's head, was viewed as the giver and guardian of the Nile River. Another god, Hapi, spirit of the Nile, was credited with the annual Nile flood that brought in thousands of tons of fresh topsoil to refertilize the land every year. He was also honored as god of fishes, birds, and marshes, which is why he was often depicted with marsh plants on his head. Also linked to the Nile floodwaters were the gods Sarpet and Satet. Alright, skip down. I'm going to do the plague of frogs. Exodus 8, 1-3. And the Lord spoke to Moses, Go to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all your territory with frogs. So the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into your house, into your bedroom, on your bed, into the houses of your servants, on your people, into your ovens, and into your netting bowls. Alright. So, frogs were considered a manifestation of the goddess Heket, goddess of birth and wife of the creator of the world. Heket was depicted with the head of a frog and the body of a woman. Also, the court of Hapi mentioned above included crocodile gods and frog goddesses, and the primordial gods Nun, Kek, and He were each depicted as a man with a frog's head. Let's get down. Plague of hail. We'll get to that. We can read that. Exodus 9:22-25. Then the Lord said to Moses, Stretch out your hand toward heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, on man, on beast, and on every herb of the field throughout the land of Egypt. And Moses stretched out his rod toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and the hail struck every herb of the tree and broke every tree of the field. Which Egyptian gods and goddesses did this plague expose as powerless and worthless? Since this plague originated with the sky, the most prominent deity discredited by this plague was Nut, the sky goddess mentioned earlier. She is often depicted in Egyptian art as arching over the earth, her body painted with stars. But Nut wasn't the only Egyptian god discredited by this plague. Where was Shu, the god of air and bearer of heaven? Why didn't he stop this devastating storm? Where was Horus, the hawk-headed third member of the Egyptian Trinity and sky god of Upper Egypt? And what of Seth, god of storms and protector of crops? Or Neper, god of grain crops? Or again Osiris, who was ruler of life and vegetation? So we can go ahead and do one more. Exodus chapter 10, verse 21-23. We read about the terrifying plague of darkness. Then the Lord said to Moses, Stretch out your hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, darkness which may be felt. So Moses stretched out his hand toward heaven, and there was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. Imagine the entire world as you know it suddenly going dark, so dark that you can't see anything. You can't see other members of your family. You can't see anything in your house. The tables, the stools. Okay, let's get to the meat and potatoes. This plague of darkness was a judgment on Egypt's religion and entire culture. Of all the gods of Egypt, none was worshipped as much as the sun. We talked about that earlier with Akhenaten. The sun god, variously known as Re or Ra, Atum or Aten, and sometimes Horus, had become identified with the supreme god Amun or Amen. Amun-Ra was thus considered the greatest of the gods of Egypt. He was viewed as the creator, the giver of life, who flooded the land with his energizing rays. Many of the pharaohs incorporated his name into their names. Names like Ramses, drawn forth of Ra, Amenhotep, Amen, Amon or Amun, is pleased, and Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. But in this darkness, Amun-Ra was silent. He was nowhere to be seen, literally. Nothing was visible in the smothering darkness that covered the land. Not only were all of Egypt's other gods and goddesses powerless, but their greatest and most important god, Amun-Ra, was just as powerless and useless to help them. Again, the Egyptian gods had failed them. So I want to stop there with that. So let's go to this right here. And many of you probably have not heard about this or seen this before, but this is basically called the Ipuwer Papyrus. So with me, one of the things that I like to do is I like to find secular sources, archaeological sources that corroborate the passages that are in the Bible. So let's read. In the early 19th century, a papyrus dating from the end of the Middle Kingdom was found in Egypt. It was taken to the Leiden Museum in Holland and interpreted by A.H. Gardner in 1909. The complete papyrus can be found in the Book of Admonitions of an Egyptian from a hieratic papyrus in Leiden. The papyrus describes the violent upheavals in Egypt, starvation, drought, escape of slaves with the wealth of the Egyptians, and death throughout the land. The papyrus is written by an Egyptian named Ipuwer and appears to be an eyewitness account of the effects of the Exodus plagues from the perspective of an average Egyptian. Below are excerpts from the papyrus together with their parallels in the book of Exodus. So once again, I'm not going to read these. I just want to go ahead and do enough to show and prove that this aspect, according to this video, as far as being a Christian and a God of the Bible, these things did not steal anything from Kemet. And there are numerous passages in the Bible that God was against the things that Egyptians did. He was against the polytheism and the different gods that they worship for things that he created and things that he did. And not only that, just other aspects of Egyptian culture, the God of the Bible was against. He wasn't against Egyptians. He wanted to save Egyptians, but he was against the culture that they developed. All right, so Pure Papyrus, Leiden 344. Plague is throughout the land. Blood is everywhere. The river is blood. Men shrink from tasting. Human beings and thirst after water. That is our water. That is our happiness. What shall we do in respect thereof? All is ruin. Let's go to Exodus. All the waters of the river were turned to blood. There was blood throughout all the land of Egypt, and the river stank. And all the Egyptians dug around the river for water to drink, for they could not drink the water of the river. All right. Forsooth, gates, columns, and walls are consumed by fire. Lower Egypt weeps. The entire palace is without its revenues. To it belong by right wheat and barley, geese and fish. Forsooth, grain was perished on every side. And forsooth, that was perished which was yet yesterday seen. The land is left over to its weariness like the cutting of flax. All right, this is Exodus 9:23. Most of these are from Exodus 9. And the fire ran along the ground. There was hail and fire mingled with hail, very grievous. And the hail smote every herb of the field and broke every tree of the field. And the flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was in season and flax was ripe. But the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not grown up. There remained no green things in the trees or in the herbs of the field throughout all the land of Egypt. Let's skip down to this one. The land is without light. Pure Papyrus. All right, Exodus 10:22. And there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt. I'm going on to this one. Gold and lapis lazuli, silver and malachite, carnelian and bronze are fastened on the neck of female slaves. Female in particular. It's important. And they requested from the Egyptians silver and gold articles and clothing, and God made the Egyptians favor them, and they granted their request. The Israelites thus drank Egypt of its wealth. All right, so I want to go ahead and go to Exodus chapter 3, and I want to go to 21 and 22. And this is God telling Moses what's going to happen once he delivers Israel from Egypt. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when ye go, ye shall not go empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor and of her that sojourneth in her house jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And ye shall put them upon your sons and your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Egyptians. All right, so it's clearly reminiscent of what this Egyptian individual has spoken. So my next set of videos are going to be exposing Kemet and proving that Christianity did not come from Kemet, and that these things or these claims that are made by Kemet are false. So with that being said, God bless you all out there. If you have any questions or anything like that, just go ahead and comment. So that's it for this video. God bless.